Every single week, somewhere in the world, a gardener is on their knees, not planting, not harvesting, not enjoying their garden, pulling weeds, the same weeds they pulled last week and the week before that. And here is the part that nobody talks about. It never stops. Not unless you change something, not unless you stop leaving bare soil sitting there open and exposed, basically handing a welcome sign to every weed seed that floats past on the breeze. Your garden center isn't going to tell you this. They'd rather you bought the mulch, the weed membrane, the bottles of weed killer that you have to keep buying year after year because they don't actually solve the problem. Here's what actually solves the problem. You plant something that spreads, something that forms a dense living carpet across your soil so thick and so tight that weeds physically cannot get through. Something that comes back every single year without you lifting a finger. 9 plants. That's all. 9 plants that, once established, do more weed suppression than anything you've ever bought in a bottle. Stay with me, because the one at number 4, I've had it in my garden for 11 years and I haven't pulled a weed from that bed since year 2. 9 ground covers. All of them perennial, meaning you plant them once and they come back every year. All of them genuinely effective at smothering weeds, and all of them actually beautiful because there's no point having a weed-free garden that looks like a car park. We're covering sun lovers and shade lovers, fast spreaders and steady ones, plants that work in cold winters and dry summers. Whether you're gardening in the UK, North America, New Zealand, or anywhere in between, this list covers you. Let's go. Number 1, Ajuga, also known as bugleweed. Ajuga is one of the most underrated plants in any gardener's arsenal. It grows low, we're talking 10 to 15 centimeters, but it spreads wide and fast, sending out runners in every direction, rooting as it goes, forming a dense mat of textured foliage that blocks light from the soil completely. Most people walk past it in the garden center because the foliage can look a bit ordinary in a small pot. That is a mistake. Get this plant into the ground, give it 1 growing season, and you will have coverage. Real coverage. The kind that makes you look at a bed that used to take an hour of weeding every week and realize you haven't touched it in months. Here's what most people don't know about Ajuga. It actually prefers difficult conditions. Partial shade, dry soil under trees, the spots where grass refuses to grow and weeds seem to thrive. Ajuga handles all of it. It's not just surviving there, it's thriving. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy down to minus 29 degrees Celsius. That covers USDA zones 3 through 9, RHS rating H7, which means it's tough enough for virtually any temperate garden on the planet. It spreads roughly 30 to 60 centimeters per season once established. And in spring, it sends up short spikes of blue-violet flowers, genuinely beautiful, and pollinators can't leave them alone. And here's the part most people miss. Ajuga is evergreen in mild winters, which means it's suppressing weeds for you in January, February, March. Not just in summer, year-round weed suppression from a single planting. The only thing this plant asks of you, don't plant it in waterlogged soil. Good drainage is all it needs. Give it that, and it will take care of everything else. Imagine a shady corner of your garden, the one under the tree where nothing ever seems to work, where weeds come back every time you clear them. Picture that same corner covered in deep bronze and purple foliage, topped with blue flower spikes in spring, completely weed-free. That is Ajuga doing what it does. Number 2, creeping thyme. If you have a sunny dry spot, a gravel path, a patio edge, a slope that bakes in summer, creeping thyme is the plant you've been looking for your whole gardening life. It grows flat, dense, fragrant, and it spreads into every gap it can find, crowding out weeds so effectively that I've seen it used as a complete lawn replacement in dry gardens. Here is the counterintuitive truth about creeping thyme. Poor soil makes it better. Rich, fertile soil actually produces weak, floppy growth. Sandy, dry, almost neglected soil, that's where this plant becomes unstoppable. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 4 through 9, RHS H6, survives hard winters without a second thought, spreads up to 60 centimeters wide. In early summer, it covers itself in tiny flowers, pink, purple, or white depending on variety. And those flowers attract more pollinators per square meter than almost any other ground cover you can name. And here's the part most people miss. It's edible. The exact same plant you're using to smother weeds in your garden is a culinary herb. The foliage releases fragrance every time you brush past it or step on it. It handles light foot traffic. Plant it between stepping stones, and every time you walk through your garden, you get that scent. The only thing this plant asks of you, cut it back by about 1/3 after flowering. That one simple action keeps it dense and tight, rather than woody and sparse. 10 minutes once a year. That's your entire maintenance commitment. Have you grown creeping thyme before? Drop your experience in the comments and tell me where in the world you're gardening, because this plant performs very differently in a wet climate versus a dry summer. Number 3. Vinca minor. Most people know it as periwinkle. Vinca minor is the ground cover that experienced gardeners keep coming back to. Not because it's flashy, not because it's unusual, because it works in shade, in dry soil, under trees where almost nothing else survives, year after year without fail. The stems trail along the ground, rooting wherever they touch the soil, gradually knitting together into a thick, glossy evergreen mat. Plant Vinca at 30 to 40 centimeter spacings, and within 2 growing seasons, the gaps are gone, completely gone. Most people don't realize Vinca minor starts flowering in late winter. We're talking February, sometimes even January, in milder climates. Those cheerful blue-purple flowers appear when the garden has almost nothing else to offer, and then they continue on and off right through to early summer. Here's what you need to know. Hardy to USDA zones 4 through 9, RHS H6. Spreads steadily and reliably, not aggressively, not invasively, just consistently. Evergreen, so it's working all winter. And established plants survive significant drought once their roots are down. And here's the part most people miss. Vinca is one of the best options for steep slopes and banks. The trailing stems root into the soil as they spread, binding it, preventing erosion. If you have a bank that washes in heavy rain and weeds claim every spring, this is your answer. The only thing this plant asks of you, do not confuse Vinca minor with Vinca major. The larger species can become invasive in some regions. Vinca minor stays manageable. Always check the label. Quick pause. If you're finding this useful and you're not subscribed yet, YouTube will literally stop showing you this channel. Not slow down. Stop. Hit subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds and it's free. Always will be. Number 4. Hardy Geranium, also called Cranesbill. And I want to be very clear about something before we go further. When I say hardy geranium, I do not mean the bright red plants you see in window boxes every summer. Those are pelargoniums, tender annuals that die at the first frost. Hardy geraniums are something else entirely. They are tough, perennial, spreading ground cover plants that produce months of flowers, smother weeds with their dense foliage, and come back bigger and better every single year. I've had Geranium roseanne in my garden for 11 years. It has never needed dividing, never needed feeding, never been lost to cold. And it blooms from late spring right through to the first hard frost, 5, sometimes 6 months of violet blue flowers without stopping. Here's what surprises most people. Hardy geraniums thrive in poor, dry soil just as readily as rich borders. Once established, they laugh at drought. The foliage is so dense, 40, 50, 60 centimeters across per plant, that nothing grows beneath it. Here's what you need to know. Most varieties are hardy to USDA zones 4 through 8, RHS H6. They spread 40 to 60 centimeters, and after 3 years, a single plant can be divided to give you 4 to 6 new plants for free. The blooms attract bees and butterflies throughout summer. And here's the part most people miss. Hardy geraniums are deer and rabbit resistant. In rural gardens where browsing animals are a constant problem, this matters enormously. The only thing this plant asks of you after the first flush of flowers, cut the whole plant back by half. It looks brutal. Within 3 weeks, it comes back with fresh foliage and a second wave of flowers. Don't skip this step. Imagine midsummer, that middle patch of your border that you've never quite solved, where weeds come back every time you clear them. Now picture it covered in violet blue flowers from one end to the other, with bees working through it from morning to evening. That is Geranium roseanne doing what it does. Number 5. Nepeta. Most people call it catmint. If you want one plant that does everything, suppresses weeds, looks beautiful, survives drought, feeds pollinators, and comes back year after year, Nepeta is probably the closest thing to a perfect ground cover that exists. It grows into generous mounds of soft, gray-green aromatic foliage, 40 to 60 centimeters tall and wide, and then in early summer it covers itself in lavender-blue flower spikes that attract every pollinator in the neighborhood. Here is the counterintuitive truth. Nepeta does not want to be coddled. Rich, moist, fertile soil produces lax, floppy plants that need staking and collapse after rain. Poor soil, full sun, and neglect, that's when Nepeta becomes the plant every gardener envies from the road. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 3 through 8, RHS H7, one of the hardiest plants on this entire list. It blooms from late spring through to early autumn if you cut it back after the first flush. It spreads 50 to 60 centimeters and forms weed-proof coverage within a single season. Horticultural researchers recorded over 30 species of pollinator visiting Nepeta in a single garden. And here's the part most people miss, the scent. Crush a leaf, and you get something between mint and lavender, cooling, clean, distinctly garden. Cats are drawn to it, which either delights or troubles you depending on your relationship with cats. But the bees love it just as much. The only thing this plant asks of you, cut it back hard by 2/3 after the first flowers fade. Do it once, get a second flush of flowers in late summer that lasts until frost. What's the one spot in your garden that has defeated every plant you've ever tried? The shady corner, the dry bank, the patch under the tree. Drop it in the comments. Tell me where you're gardening and what you've already attempted. I read every comment. Number 6. Sedum, also called stonecrop. Sedum is the ground cover for the worst soil in your garden. Rocky, sandy, dry. Slopes that drain so fast nothing else holds on. Sedum doesn't just survive there, it spreads, flowers, and suppresses every weed that tries to compete. The creeping varieties stay low, hugging the ground at just 5 to 10 centimeters, but spreading outward by 30 to 60 centimeters in a season. The foliage is succulent, it stores water in its leaves, which means it survives weeks of drought that would finish most plants. Most gardeners don't know that sedum is semi-evergreen to evergreen in most climates. The foliage stays on the plant through winter, continuing to shade the soil and suppress weed germination even in the coldest months. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 3 through 9, RHSH7 in most varieties. Spreads 30 to 60 centimeters per season. The flowers come in summer, typically yellow, pink, or white, depending on variety, and they are among the best sources of late-season nectar for pollinators before autumn sets in. And here's the part most people miss. Sedum is virtually maintenance-free once established. No pruning, no feeding, no watering once it has settled in. The one thing that kills it sitting in waterlogged soil in winter is the only thing to avoid. The only thing this plant asks of you, if you're planting sedum on a slope or bank, add a layer of grit to the planting hole. The drainage this provides in the first season makes the difference between a plant that thrives and one that rots. Think of one person you know who's been fighting the same weeds in the same spot for years. Send them this video, no message needed, just the link. This is exactly what they need. Number 7. Sweet Woodruff. Sweet Woodruff is the plant most gardeners have never considered and the one I wish someone had shown me 20 years earlier. It is the solution to the problem that defeats almost every other ground cover: deep shade. Not partial shade, not dappled light, deep, dry shade under dense tree canopy, the kind of shade where even grass gives up. Sweet woodruff fills it, spreads through it, smothers every weed that tries to compete. The foliage appears in halls like tiny green stars arranged around each stem. It looks like a landscape architect designed it. It wasn't, you just planted it and walked away. In late spring, it covers itself in tiny white flowers with a scent that intensifies as the foliage dries. Here's what most people don't know. Sweet woodruff spreads by underground rhizomes, not just surface runners. This means it moves through the soil beneath established plants, filling gaps you didn't even know were there, emerging where you need it most. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 4 through 8, RHSH6. Grows 15 to 30 centimeters tall, spreads 60 centimeters or more per season in good conditions. Fully deciduous in cold winters, but the roots survive and it returns reliably every spring. And here's the part most people miss. Where other ground covers demand sun, sweet woodruff demands shade. This makes it irreplaceable under established trees, in woodland gardens or in north-facing beds where every other option on this list would struggle. The only thing this plant asks of you, water it during dry spells in its first season to help it establish. After that, leave it entirely alone. Intervention is the enemy of sweet woodruff. Once it's moving, it doesn't need help. Number 8. Bergenia. Bergenia is the ground cover that earns its place in every season. In spring, it produces large, bold flower spikes, deep pink, hot pink, or white, depending on variety, pushing up before almost anything else in the garden has stirred, sometimes in late winter. In summer, those broad, leathery leaves shade the soil so completely that weeds don't stand a chance. And in winter, this is where Bergenia becomes extraordinary. Those same leaves turn deep red, copper, and burgundy, giving the garden color when everything else is gone. Most people treat Bergenia as a filler plant, something to shove in a corner and forget about. That is exactly the right approach. And it's also exactly why Bergenia works so well. It genuinely thrives on neglect. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 3 through 8, RHSH7. The leaves span 20 to 30 centimeters across, genuinely large, forming impenetrable coverage. Each clump expands roughly 30 centimeters per year. The RHS has given its award of garden merit to multiple Bergenia varieties, their own stamp of reliability. And here's the part most people miss. Bergenia is one of the most effective ground covers for clay soil. Where drainage is poor and other plants struggle, Bergenia settles in and spreads without complaint. Heavy clay? This is your plant. The only thing this plant asks of you, remove the old leaves in late spring, just as the new growth appears. 10 minutes. That's the full extent of your annual maintenance. Imagine February. Everything in the garden is grey and bare. Then you look at your border and there are those deep pink flower spikes pushing up through nothing, telling you spring is coming before anyone else believed it. That is Bergenia. Plant it once and it delivers that moment every single year. Before you found this video, did you think low-maintenance gardening meant a boring garden? Be honest in the comments, because I hear it constantly. Drop your answer below. You're in very good company. Number 9. Liriope, also called Lilyturf, and I've saved this one for last because it solves a problem none of the other plants on this list can fully address. Most ground covers, even the best ones, lose their weed-suppressing power in late summer and autumn, when growth slows and the garden starts looking tired. Liriope doesn't. It produces its flowers, spikes of purple or white, dense and upright in late summer and early autumn. When everything else is winding down, Liriope is at its best, and those flowers appear above arching, grass-like foliage that stays evergreen through winter, providing year-round soil coverage and year-round weed suppression. Here's the detail most people miss. Liriope spreads through underground rhizomes that form a tight interlocking network beneath the soil surface. Weeds don't just struggle to grow through the foliage, they struggle to penetrate the root system underneath it. Here's what you need to know. It's hardy to USDA zones 5 through 10, RHS H5, thrives in mild and moderate climates. It handles everything from full sun to deep shade, drought-tolerant once established, and the late-season flowers are genuinely valuable for pollinators looking for nectar before winter. And here's the part most people miss. Liriope tolerates occasional flooding. If you have a low-lying area of your garden that collects water after heavy rain, Liriope manages this better than almost any other ground cover on this list. The only thing this plant asks of you, in late winter, before new growth emerges, cut the foliage back to about 5 centimeters from the ground. Use shears, take 10 minutes, and the plant comes back fresh and dense every time. You came into this video pulling weeds. Hopefully, you're leaving it with a plan to stop. 9 plants. 9 different solutions for 9 different spots in your garden, sun and shade, wet and dry, cold winters and warm ones. Every single one of them perennial, every single one of them spreading, every single one of them working underground, forming the kind of root network that makes weed germination difficult, then unlikely, then in most cases virtually impossible. Now is the time to plant them. The soil is warm. The growing season is ahead of you. Put these plants in the ground now, and by autumn they're established. By next spring they're spreading. By the spring after that, that bed you've been fighting every season is done. Finished, weed-free and beautiful without a single minute of your time. That is not a fantasy. That is just the right plant in the right place, doing what it was built to do. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and drop one comment below. Tell me which of these 9 you're planting first, and tell me where in the world you're gardening. This is your garden. This is your season. Go plant something.